Welcome to Horror Franchise Wednesday. Let's talk about Jeepers Creepers 3, which came out in 2017. Once again, written and directed by Victor Salva. And this will be the last one, written and directed by him. Part 4, Reborn, which just came out, is written and directed by someone else completely, in case you didn't know. So, this one picks up right after the events of Part 1, not 2, and it is about this task force teaming up with the local Poho County Police to find a way to kill this creeper once and for all. And meanwhile, Meg Foster's character finds the severed hand of the creeper, and it reveals the creeper's origins to her. Alright, so the positives for this movie, this won't take long, is I like that it takes place in between 1 and 2 to establish like a 4-day gap in between 1 and 2, and this one therefore has 4 days to play around with, and it is really all just 1 day, though, from beginning to end, right after part 1. And so I kind of like that, and I like it picks up right after. We're at the police station at the end of part 1. We got the same cop, same actor playing him, so I like that. And I also like that the actress who played Trish is the narrator, and we have the return of the creeper's weapons from 1 and 2. He's got the axe that was missing for some reason in part 2, and the truck is back, although I'll talk about what I don't like about the truck later. And I will say the movie looks good. Like the night scenes, there's not many, but it looks good. Like cinematography, it's fine. It's not a poorly shot movie or anything. So I'll give it that. It at least looks decent. But getting into all the things I don't like about this movie. Once again, like part 2, this one has horrible dialogue, very cringe-inducing dialogue, a lot of overacting, bad performances from like everyone. I think this is the worst makeup for the creeper. He's overexposed, like in the sunlight from beginning to end, and so you just see him more clearly, and the makeup doesn't look as good this time around. It just looks more like a mask, like makeup, clearly. It doesn't look as convincing as the other 2 movies, and there's a lot of CGI shots in the film, like sci-fi original made-for-TV CGI, horrible, and like CGI effects, CGI explosions, CGI cars crashing, and CGI weapons, and the physical props on set that this guy, the creeper, is using. All his weapons look like fake rubber knives and axes. Like, they look so fucking fake. And I hate the goddamn truck in this movie. It's been upgraded to being like a Batmobile, and it's got all these fucking weapons that it didn't have before. Like, if he had this the whole time, why wasn't he using it in part 1? And by the end of this movie, I was expecting the truck to like blow up or crash and not be usable anymore, to explain why it wasn't in part 2. But his truck is still all in one piece by the end, so why wasn't it in part 2? It has this thing that shoots out like a harpoon, and it like can fucking find the people thousands of yards away, and it's got like these heat-seeking missile like things that shoot out of the bottom, and it's like something out of like Mario Kart, like some little fucking turtle just going across the ground and blows up. It's so fucking over the top. It's so ridiculous. That truck is 100% like bulletproof. Its bullets are ricocheting off of the tires, and it's ricocheting like directly back at the person shooting, which is just like fucking impossible. Like, you know the odds of that? Like, it can go in any direction. A bullet can ricochet in 1,000 different directions. The odds of it just keep going right back to the person who's shooting is absurd. Like, it's so dumb. And this whole movie is like about the creeper's origins. Like, we're gonna learn its secrets. The creeper's trying to get to the severed hand to find out. To stop the other people from finding out how to stop the creeper and how this thing came to be. And they touch the hand and they find out everything, but they never fucking tell the audience. So what's the point of putting it in the movie? Like, this whole movie is building up to it and building up to it. Meg Foster grabs it, and then the task force comes, and they all start grabbing it, and they're like, oh my god, we saw it. It's ancient. And it's like, yeah, we can kind of put that together ourselves as the audience. It's obvious that this thing's probably been around for thousands of years, So it's like, we kind of already knew that. So that wasn't shocking, and that's all we learn. That's all we fucking learn at the end of the movie is that this thing is ancient. But it's like, okay, what else did you see? I'm sure if they did show us, it would look terrible. It'd probably be a bunch of CGI shots thrown together, and it would have looked horrible. But at least try to show us the origins of this fucking thing. You keep talking about it, but you never fucking show it. So what did they learn besides it's ancient? They don't learn how to kill it, and they keep shooting at the fucking thing, and it just bullets are ricocheting off of it. It's clearly unstoppable, and yet they just keep trying to fucking shoot it. It's like, at what point do you just throw your weapon down and try to get the fuck away? It's so dumb, beginning to end. And all these characters you could give a fuck less about. Like, the characters in Love, Mr. Freckles, I call him, because I don't know what his fucking name is, but he's got the most freckles on his face I've seen in my life. And, like, he's in love with this girl who's had, an abusive stepdad. It's like, okay, yeah, been here, done that, cliche character. And living with her grandma who is seeing ghosts and is talking to the dead. Like, she's a psychic. It's the same shit we saw in part 1 and 2. And there's really no fucking ending to this movie. Like, a lot of these characters survive, and we learn nothing. And it really does feel like the middle chapter. It's technically in between 1 and 2, and it really is just like the second act from beginning to end. It just starts quick, it gets going, and it's just kill, 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 all off camera, characters you don't give a fuck about, who are just poorly acted, poorly written, the dialogue's terrible. Like, all off camera kills. At least give us some fucking gore, not all this CGI bullshit. It's so fucking terrible from beginning to end. What else? We don't even see the creeper take parts. Like, why the fuck not? That's like his whole thing. That's his gimmick. He needs to take parts. He loses an eye at one point, kills a random trucker. I guess he took his eye, but we don't see it in part 1. We see him take a tongue. In part 2, we see him take a whole fucking head. I actually just read on IMDb trivia that the studios or whoever was in charge told Victor Salva not to include the creeper eating people. Like, that's his whole fucking thing. They actually told Victor Salva, hey, don't show the creeper doing what he's known for doing in the other 2 movies. That's like if Blumhouse told David Gordon Green, hey, don't show Michael stab people, all right? We don't want that. That's the whole fucking point. So final thoughts, this is a horribly written sci-fi original quality turd where we learn more about the truck than we do the creeper himself. That's completely void of suspense, with jaw-dropping bad CG, no gore, and no shits to give about any of these characters. The story just lacks focus. It needed to be way more focused on this task force and this, like, Creighton Duke cop teaming up with this other cop. Just focus on them, flesh these characters out, let's learn more about them, and give them better dialogue. Quit having them yell the whole fucking movie. Everyone's just constantly yelling and pissed off. And how many times is the sentence 23 years ago said in this film? I felt like I was watching Halloween Kills again. 40 years ago, blah, blah, blah. Like, take a drink in that movie. 40 years ago, and this one it's 23 years ago. It's 23. Like, fucking stop saying it. So just focus on them more, and then maybe have Meg Foster in the movie, but take out the grandkid and all that shit. Take out all the other kids. You can throw in a couple little cannon fodder characters that get killed from time to time, like the dirt bike people, fine. Just to throw in a kill, but have it be on screen, have it be gory, and get rid of the fucking weapons that are just on their own, doing their own thing. Like, stop with that. Alright, just have more focus on some of these other characters. Quit going all over the fucking place. So when it comes to Jeepers Creepers 3, I'm giving it 1 out of 5. Alright, spoilers. So, in the opening, it's all slow-mo, and we get a lot more of that slow-mo later on. Victor Salva is slowly turning into Mr. Wu, who did Mission Impossible 2. I forget his name. John Woo? Something Woo? Whatever. Lots of slow-mo. So, this movie starts 23 years before Part 1, and this guy sees a dude get sucked up into the air by some creature with wings, and then does something that only a character in a horror movie would do, and that's get out of the truck and, like, investigate. Like, what the fuck was that? It's like, how about you just fucking drive away? If I saw that shit, I wouldn't just be like, huh, I wonder what that was. And then, like, a machete falls out of the sky, and then the hand from the creeper falls out of the sky as well, and later we find out that this dumbass took the hand and buried it in his backyard. And then he gets killed. So we find out that the creeper's truck can actually drive itself, and it has like this harpoon cable. It just shoots out of the car randomly, and it has like motion sensor, like booby traps, but it knows when it's not the creeper, because if the creeper was to go into the truck, it wouldn't like trigger the trap. It only goes off when it's other people. And so we find out that the hand, it was a piece of the creeper that was left behind, and it has secrets in it. And so it was buried in the property of Meg Foster, and she keeps seeing visions of her ghost son who's constantly yelling at her and saying, I already told you all this information. I'm going to tell you again because now the audience is listening. And so then the sis has like this misogynist friend, Kirk, or brother, Kirk, and there's like this whole thing with this rabbit in a cage, and they're like, it's so cruel, let it out. And then by the end of the scene, they just leave it in there. It's like, sis, if it's such a big deal, just let the fucking rabbit out. But she's telling the brother, like, get the rabbit out of the cage, you're so mean. And he's like, it's the law of the jungle. You guys are just a bunch of women. And then runs away. And we never see them take the rabbit out of the cage. Not till like 4 days later, when it like flashes forward a few days and it goes into part 2. It's like, why wasn't the rabbit let out of the cage right away? If it was such a big fucking deal, if it was so cruel to have that rabbit in the cage, lady, take it out. But she just leaves it in there, so she's kind of a hypocrite. And so then the truck harpoon is like a fucking missile, and it like locks on to targets, and it like takes Kirk right off of his bike, and they're like thousands of yards away from the truck. But then when it cuts back to them, and they're like helping out their friend, they're like 10 yards away from the truck. Like, they're so close to it. It's like, how is that even possible? So the continuity there, geographically, was terrible. And then there was a line of dialogue in this movie that I couldn't help but feel like it was Victor Salva trying to, like, excuse his behavior. This guy, after he's flirting with Addie, he's talking to Mr. Freckles, and he's like, hey, the heart just wants what it wants. It likes what it likes. If a guy wants to fuck a 12-year-old, it's just his heart. His heart wants what it wants. Victor Salva, he threw that line in there, I swear, just to, like, excuse his behavior. The heart wants what it wants, man. And then these two bikers get javelined, like, and it's so convenient, like, they're perfectly lined up so the javelin thing could, like, go through both of them, and then somehow it went through both of them, hit them into the tree, but it also, like, lifted them up a few feet. Like, how is that even possible? There's a lot more of that later on. It's like, how is that even possible? Whatever. And fake-ass props. Already talked about that. And so then they dig up the creeper's hand, and of course, it's still moving. And then it, like, lifts Meg Foster, like, off the ground, and her eyes roll back, and she's seeing the origins and never tells anyone what it is. And then the creeper picks up, like, a semi and throws it. But yet, in part 2, he had such a fucking difficult time getting inside the bus. He's, like, on the outside shaking it. He's like, how do I get in? And then he has to, like, fall from the heavens onto the roof to, like, smash it in so it's easier to get inside. How is he able to do this to a semi, but he can't get inside a fucking bus in part 2? And she, like, hides the hand in this pot. This, like, flower pot, it's, like, turned upside down, but there's, like, a giant hole in the side that the thing could easily just crawl out of if it wanted to, but it never does. But it's like, if you're trying to hide this hand and make sure it can't get away, why would you put it in a place that has a hole where that thing could easily just crawl out of and escape? I thought that was so fucking stupid, amongst a lot of other things. The car won't start trope, can't stand it. And why is everyone in this movie driving trucks from, like, the 1950s? It's, like, 2001. Are people still driving old cars like that? I don't know. And so, yeah, Addie gets taken, but for some reason she's left alive in the back of the truck. They have like this throwaway line, like, maybe he thought we were already dead, but why would he think that? Like, he's in such a hurry that he just doesn't care. But yeah, that just seemed like a plot convenience. And so then Kirk, he triggers one of the baby traps, and the pipe, like, goes right through his head, and the task force has a truck with a license plate that says "Be killing you," which I thought was kind of cute. And then, so yeah, the entire truck is fucking bulletproof. And we got, like, these things that look like they're out of, like, that Mario Kart racing game where you, like, hit a button and something, like, shoots out the back of your car and, like, attacks the players behind you. Like, this, like, turtle thing has, like, a shell and, like, turns around and starts chasing the car. It's like a heat-seeking missile, and when it blows up, this fire and smoke is so fucking bad. It's like green screen CGI bullshit. And when the car, like, the truck flips, it's like a whole, like, CGI truck, like, flipping, and CGI bullets, and CGI cracks on the windshield. Like, it all looks fake. And like, the dude has like a minigun, and he's shooting the fucking thing, and all the bullets come right back at him. Like, bullshit. And so, yeah, and then he has like Thor's hammer. He like hits the dude, Creighton Duke, right in the face with the axe, and then like he like puts his hand out and like raises the dude, and the axe comes flying back into his hand like Thor's hammer. So fucking over the top. And so somehow one trap in the truck, when Addie triggers it and she leaves, it like closes down and it just takes her shoe off. How did it not go like through her fucking foot? How did it take her shoe off? And then, not even like a minute later, he like throws a javelin at her and it like hits her shoulder, but it takes her entire jacket off. It doesn't actually like hit her arm and, you know, stab her at all. It just takes her jacket completely off her body. It doesn't rip her jacket, it just takes it all off and pins it to like the fence. How the fuck is that even possible? And so then they pin the creeper's hand to a sign, like a cardboard sign with permanent marker, and they write down, "We know what you are." But we don't. Like, we know it's ancient now, but it's like, they're like taunting it, like, haha, we know what you are. And he reads it and he grabs his old hand, "Hey, old buddy," and he jerks off with it. I wish. But he like smashes it and it crumbles to dust. And then he starts like crying and screaming, and all the crows from the heavens start falling down around him. It's like, what the fuck's going on? He's like mad, like, no! They know what I am. Oh, well, I guess I'll just leave them alive. Because he never comes back and kills them. Addie survives. Meg Foster survives. He left that cop in the field alive for some fucking reason. He was right there. Go kill him. Left him alive. I guess he doesn't want to kill them for some reason. I don't know. And then Mr. Freckles gets on the bus from part 2. Turns out he was on that bus in part 2. He's a character. And from that movie. Fuck that. No, he's not. His name is Buddy in this movie. There's no character named Buddy in part 2, so that was stupid. It's like, at least name him the same name as the character in part 2. You know? Like, at least do that. But he's not a fucking character in part 2. And then they reveal Trish is the narrator, and she's like, "Come and get me, motherfucker." The end. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on this garbage movie? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, if you like what you've seen here, you can hit this like button and become a subscriber today just by clicking on my cartoon face in about 5 seconds. And remember, it's all opinion. You don't need to get butthurt about it.